got a big agenda tonight. So we'll call to order the April 20th Parks, Trails, and Lakes meeting. This is a regular meeting this week. Yes. Jamie, do you want to start with roll call?
Yes. Chair Steenblock.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Ramseth.
Here.
Commissioner Gary. Commissioner Steenblock.
Here.
Commissioner Geyer.
Here.
And Commissioner Moorhead. All right.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And before we, well, I'm just going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting with exception of removing 5A, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from the April 13th workshop meeting.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, do you want a roll call, Jamie?
Chair Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramseth.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer.
Aye.
All right, moving right along, we have open forum, and I do see some guests with us. I'm not sure if they're here for open forum or topics. So Jamie, do you have insight on this one?
Yes, we do have one open forum guest this evening that will be speaking, and it's going to be in regards to Clear Lake Park. And so with that, I welcome Mike and if that's the correct pronunciation.
That is right.
So, this is your opportunity to address the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. And again, it's an opportunity to provide the feedback. They won't necessarily engage in conversation, but it's a good opportunity to share your thoughts. So with that, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Welcome.
Perfect. Thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Clear Lake Park, which I live really close to. So I'm on Fondant Avenue right off of 97. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with where Clear Lake Park is, but it's off of 213th Street, right off of Forest Road. So my road kind of dead ends, but there's a city easement that goes right over to that neighborhood. And that neighborhood then connects right up to the Hardwood Creek Trail. So I've been here, I've lived here about 7 years now. And first moved in, didn't have any kids. Now got an almost 2-year-old and a newborn. So like I said, I'll make this because they require a little bit of attention. But anyway, I attached some pictures, and I think Jamie was going to send them out to you if you haven't already.
Yep, I'll share my screen as you're talking, if that's helpful.
Okay, yeah, that would be perfect. Just so that you guys can get a little bit of a visual. So, it's the equipment that is there is nice, but that's about all there is. There's that little about 2.5-foot slide, a couple swings, that little rock figure type of thing to climb on. But you see, there's all that space. There's a lot of room for opportunity. In our neighborhood, we got about 12, 15 houses. We got a fair amount of young kids right in our neighborhood. And then I was counting, there's about 50 houses in the neighborhood that is where that park is. I've talked to probably 3 or 4 families that also have kids under 5. You see kids at this park all the time. I just would love to see maybe a little bit more of an opportunity for some better or more updated equipment. Last picture. I don't know if you sent the one.
You want me to show the 4th one?
Yeah, sure. The 4th one. This
okay.
is the money one, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was okay because this is live.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second here and I'll get that one shared.
Perfect.
Okay, there you go.
All right, there's the money shot. So these are the kids that want a nice improved park. That's my son as well as my neighbor's son. So they're going to be best buddies growing up. Additionally, you can actually see in the background, it butts up to that other neighborhood. I can't remember the name of that street offhand, but there's another 12, 15 houses in that neighborhood. So it's a nice park. It's right off the Hardwood Creek Trail too. So it's not even just our neighborhoods that would be able to take advantage of it. But anybody going up and down that trail system would be able to, which I'm sure you all know is a well-utilized trail system. So thank you. I appreciate it. Would love love to see a little bit more action at the park.
All right.
If I could, I'd like to comment on Mr. Nukin's comment about the Clear Lake Park. Full disclosure, Mike is my next door neighbor. But at any rate, when I had a little granddaughter, the park had a lot better equipment in it, equipment that was a little more fun for the kids to play with, a little more challenging. And that was replaced by what you've seen. And there are a number of families with children in the area, lots of little kids, and they don't find that to be particularly challenging. So I agree with Mike that the park has been set for some improvements. He didn't show the basketball court, but that's kind of all cracked asphalt, and it gets flooded once in a while. So at any rate, I agree with Mike, the park could use some new equipment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I should have taken a picture of the basketball court. That's pretty sad. Yeah, that could use some help. So a lot of space, a lot of room for opportunity. The material I don't know what you would call it. It's like just ripped up pieces of tire, like kind of that rubbery material. So that's actually really nice. Like it's not as messy as sand and wood chips and that kind of stuff. But yeah, lots of room for more equipment, more things to do.
Doug, this is one we've talked about too, that had the flooding issues, correct?
Yes.
On our list? Okay.
It gets a lot of standing water after a heavy rain.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of in the sunken areas that are closer to the street. In that one picture where you can see the sign of Clear Lake Park, it's kind of like a raised up area to be able to get to the park without having to go through those like kind of wetter areas that do happen sometimes. So it's nice that it has that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Mm-mm.
No?
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mike. And we can have later as a discussion park improvement priorities and requests. Yeah. So we can, as a commission, talk a little bit further later in our meeting. And you're welcome to stay, or you can watch the meeting back when we, if you want to focus on that later. So
that sounds good. I will do that.
All right.
Not to the kids, but thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. No.
Appreciate it.
All right, so next on the agenda then is 5B, which is the Hidden Creek Taylor's Farm concept plan. And this one, Jamie, I did go back and listen to our last meeting and prep for this one and made note of the to-do items that we had for last meeting. So I don't know if it makes sense to kind of walk through the asks that we had and get those answers first and then see where we're at.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Just a quick introduction to this. I know as Chair Steenblock mentioned, this was brought before the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission at a previous meeting with a slightly different concept plan that was shared with the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. Tonight, I know we have the developer, John Brueggemann, or I think you're John Brueggemann, and also then we have the new project manager, John Dobbs. And so, you know, I think tonight the goal is to just look at a new concept plan, but I will turn it over to Terry if you want to start and kick this off with any questions that you have. We're looking at a new concept plan, focusing in on the park dedication component this evening. But if you want to go ahead, Terry, if you have some questions you want to start with, or we can then turn it over to Donovan and the development team.
Yeah, so what I did was go back and I watched that meeting, and then I know Karen and Tim and Betty, you all had some comments as it related to this, and that boiled up into kind of a to-do item list to bring back to this meeting. So I'm hoping so I captured all of those to-do items, and I'm hoping maybe we can kind of walk through those and get the answers that folks talked about as it related to that, and that may help us get to a decision point for this evening? Does that sound okay with everyone?
Good.
Okay. All right. So in looking at that meeting, I did just noting that everybody was in favor of some type of trail connection here, and that was a positive aspect for all of us, that trail connection piece. And then we talked a little bit about wanting more information on the actual 5 acres, and that we had the conversation about the 5 acres not including the ponds. And so we wanted to know what the actual calculation was for the land that is available here. So maybe we can get that question first, and then we'll move on to the next one. So Donovan, do you have anything on that calculation as far as, it was 4.9 acres. And then we were going to look at, if we reduce the ponds out of that, what would the actual acreage be that would be available?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Terry. I can provide the concept plan that's before you tonight. And this is, a concept plan. So we don't have the exact acreage here. The Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission's role is to provide a preliminary determination based on, what criteria you want to have both for land. And, I believe that this is also important to not strictly go by the acreage, but also have those funds available for park improvements, so that mixture of land plus fee in lieu of, cash in order to provide for other amenities that the neighborhood can use. So I'd like to share the, the concept plan on my screen, which shows designated parkland 3 acres. And this is not including any of the stormwater area. And this plan is different from what you saw in the fall, because there is some rough areas mapped out for stormwater area, as well as that the blue line for the public, judicial ditch area that runs kind of east-west, kind of bisecting the neighborhood there. So what is proposed right now is a 3 acres in that location. Again, this is just kind of, we haven't had, this was submitted last week. We didn't have a full staff review of, the street network, lot layout, that sort of thing. But I think it's enough for consideration for the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission to see, is this the, the area, roughly the amount of land, does it meet your criteria, to then for the developer to go forward with a more detailed plan to really answer your question of the number of acres. And then also, with the number of lots and at the, $2,500 per lot park dedication fee, minus the land value of the land, provide that the real true number you'd want to see for, the amount of park improvements.
Okay, so that was one of the questions we had last time, was taking, and you doing the calculation on taking a portion of land plus the park equipment and a cash payment, and what would that look like? Because that was one of the questions. So do we have that
certainly
calculation?
Yeah. We don't right now. There's, we haven't really come forward. We don't have a true lot number, I think, and that'll come with the preliminary plat submission. And, that's going to be the result of further engineering, more conversation between the city staff and the developer. But we wanted to dial back from that original acreage in order to make sure that there was, an amount. So, funds that were available for the park improvement. What's shown here is 125 lots. And, with that, and also, what the market value of the land is for those 3 acres, subtract it for the, roughly the 125 times 2,500, gives you something north of $312,000. That's just the fee in lieu of, but then minus the 3 acres market value, I believe will still provide a significant amount of funds, for park improvements.
So I just have a quick comment or maybe point of clarification. So this is a new concept plan, and we will see a revised version yet in a future meeting. But for tonight, different in this concept plan, if I'm understanding correctly, is now we do have some stormwater area projected in this concept plan, which was not previously done in the first version. So this gives us a little bit more certainty in that, it looks like based on the grades and elevation and how the water will need to flow, like the stormwater ponds are likely to be in that area. Is that correct? Like there's no modifications to that, which would then leave us with the parkland kind of in that general area that it's currently pictured at. So we don't have the park right off of the Headwaters Parkway, which we discussed as being, a lot of traffic coming through there, high speeds. We don't want the park right next to that. So if I'm understanding correctly, this is kind of like, are we looking for feedback on the overall like placement and size of the parkland to meet that requirement? And then I know secondly, a question the Parks Commission had last time was in phase 1, what would it look like to get some parkland dedicated in phase 1 with cash? And then what would phase 2 look like? And I guess maybe some clarification on how that is depicted in this concept plan would maybe be helpful for the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission members.
Yeah, certainly. In my conversation with Mr. Dobbs, he did indicate that they expect to do 2 phases. And I said that, the city's preference would be, city staff preference would be to have all the land dedicated in the first phase. So that's locked in. And then whatever number of units or lots there is, that would be the cash payment, that the park dedication fee of cash would be related to that. And then the second phase would be just all fee in lieu of, all cash for those park improvements. Another piece here, and I think as soon as we give Mr. Dobbs the microphone, I'm sure he'll explain how, from his landscape architect background, this is really a rough drawing of what the actual park would look like in the end. This is very blocky. It's designed by an engineer, which engineers rule our world, but they, it's good if we don't let them design our parks. So what we'd like to see tonight is just simply that preliminary determination from the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission that, hey, the developer, has this in roughly the right place. That's roughly the amount of land that'll work, plus given the amount of acreage involved, number of lots involved, that there'll be enough fee in lieu of land, cash basically, to provide for those park improvements. And as Jamie mentioned, this is preliminary because actually with the preliminary plat submittal, the more formal submittal, the more detailed plans, this will come back before the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission for a formal recommendation to council. So right now we're just trying to give feedback to the developer so they can go to the next step.
Okay, so maybe we can go there quickly, and then I know we've spent quite an extensive amount of time over the course of 2 minutes talking this, so I'm really hoping that the plan answers the questions that we had. So we'll transition over to Mr. Dobbs then and see if it answers the questions we had, and if not, we can we can pivot back, but one of our goals was to be able to see what would the actual amount of acreage be, excluding wetlands and everything else. And then also, what did this look like if we did that combination of both land and a cash piece? So we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Dobbs, and then we'll regroup after you're done.
Well, so my name is John Dobbs, and I've been doing land development since '92. First and foremost, Donovan and Jamie really have spent an awful lot of time on a very short notice helping us get this concept in front of you guys tonight, and I want to really thank them for that. They did us a favor by us trying to get in here, and what we're really trying to do, at least as I understood it, and you have to remember I'm kind of new to this process a little bit, but Mr. Bergerman's down at the bottom of the screen, at least on my screen. And so he's brought me up to speed on some of this as well. The idea, as I understood it, was that past discussions had kind of defined this 3-acre tract of ground, 1.5 acres and 1.5 acres for the bigger area, and I'll just call it the area around Headwaters Parkway, not on, and the parkland not on the parkway. Maybe the water feature, the water ponds between stormwater ponds between the parkland and Headwaters Parkway to kind of give some separation, and at the same time maybe enhance the open space feel of the parkland itself. Donovan and I were talking today at length about the general concept of, as I understood it, this 3-acre tract of ground would, as you mentioned, figure out some kind of mathematical formula for what's the retail value of the land, and then that would then offset some amount of park dedication fees, and that would give us a budget to try to improve the parkland. And that's a really big deal from my seat. I see a number of parks in my career where cities just take the land at 10% or whatever it is, and then it just sits and nothing happens. And I've been a big believer my entire career that if a neighborhood is an area where it's designated that it needs a park, and that's the city park plan that does that, if there's fees that come out of the neighborhood, they should go into that neighborhood park to help develop the park so that you get a vibrant, active place where people hang out. And then, so we don't have, like the gentleman that was on open conversation, a developed park has slides and actives and all that. So I'm a big believer in that. At the same time, by the math that Donovan was talking about a few minutes ago, that's a large amount of money. And how do you program the park? How do you develop it? What is the theme of the park? What is the city of Forest Lake looking for in its park system in this neighborhood park? And how does that connect and how does that function? Those are questions that I honestly, I haven't looked at all, and I haven't heard any feedback yet from, but at the same time, I didn't give Jamie and Donovan a lot of time to respond to this either. And they were just grateful. I was just grateful that they put us on tonight. Does that answer your question? I'm trying to kind of summarize your question. I can't give you a direct answer of what a developed program park would look like. I have no frame of reference to have that conversation. I think we're a ways out. But the next step, as I understand it, would be once we get solid feedback from you folks tonight. We want some staff feedback on some of the road layout and connection stuff that this concept is. But then the next step would be preliminary plat, where we could work through grading and stormwater and the drainage. But the engineer did tell me this 3 acres that is on this plan is dry, and it is. There's no wetlands there. The blue area in general should handle the amount of stormwater we have in the site. So we should be able to do a 3-acre park, and we should be able to have enough room to do the stormwater ponding. The devil is always in those details, but there should be enough to do that. And yes, Donovan's 100% correct. I actually, if I could have blocked enough time in my day-to-day, I was actually going to render up a plan myself and do the pretty colored drawings like landscape architects do, because this thing's pretty boxy. But it's a concept. This is where we're thinking. This is the size we're thinking. We have looked enough to know we can do the ponding. This is a lot count that generally should work, but there's some details to work out. And obviously engineering hasn't looked at it and given us comments, and Donovan on a planning level hasn't either. So we understand that this is a rough version of it. So I think that's what I've heard you ask about: trail connections and 5 acres versus 3, and park and pond and land fees, and how does that all work?
Yep. So we had talked about coming back to the next meeting, which so would be the next meeting. Looking at, so if it's 3 to 4 acres, what would that cost breakdown look like with some improvements done to it? So that retail value of the land, we would need to know what that retail value of that land is. And then because we talked about doing this combination of potentially land and cash. So having the retail value of the land along with some estimated cost of improvements and what that would look like in comparison to the full cash value, the 300,000 plus that Donovan had mentioned.
If I might jump in, Terry, just quickly, I guess what I'm hearing is that if we think this concept would work, and it sounds like Donovan, you think reasonably this concept could work, and we would have some money left over. Once you do the next round of platting, is that when you'll have those items that we're looking for from a kind of rough budget? I think in general, my feeling on this is that it looks like it ticks off the boxes that we're looking for, with the park out front, but not on the Headwater Parkway. The acreage, for me, isn't as big of a thing, especially looking at how much stormwater and wetland area it does give that park a larger feel. So I guess just looking at this, it looks like it ticks off the box, provided that indeed once we see the final numbers that there is some room to improve. We'd hate to completely sign off and say, yeah, this works, and then all of a sudden there's no money left over or something else.
Yeah, well, what's that difference between we have the estimated 312,500 as dedication funds. One of the questions we had last time, there was some conversations about the number of homes if this were to move from 5 acres down to 3 acres. How many more homes would that expand by? And I think the number last time, I'm trying to shuffle through my messy desk, I think it was like 120. I can't remember. So if we know that it's a smaller plat of land here, did that change the number of houses that were here? And does that change the total dollar amount of park dedication fees? And then in addition, so let's say that right now we're comfortable with this location. What does that look like cost-wise? If we were to do, what's the value of that land with plus improvements so that we know the total cost for the city as a whole here? What are we foregoing? And I'm not sure that we have those numbers yet to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, Terry, that's a great question. And we don't have it this time. And really just the kind of what we're asking, what the developer is seeking tonight is just kind of, did they get it right on this concept plan to show the general area? And, before we had asked for a total of 3 acres and kind of more regionally, more centrally located, so that this could also serve as a park for second phase, and the and if going from like the 5 acres to a 3 acre park area, there's not really a set lot amount, because the way decreasing the amount and this change in location, shifting off the parkway, each of those lots needs to be of a specific area and size, and it might result in different road configuration, or sometimes, you know, a greater area doesn't mean more lots because it means, well, they have to build another section of road, which just the way the development calculus works, it may not make economic sense to create additional road for those to serve those lots. So kind of what I encourage you here is to look at, this is the concept plan that's submitted now, and really it's being a concept, and kind of the questions you're asking are really good questions, but you know, we don't have the information now to answer those, and that they'll come through within the preliminary plat phase. And so we'll get a much clearer, and that still doesn't cement all the lots, all the plan into, you know, a certain form. It's still something for Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission to review, but there'll be much, you know, much clearer information to make that formal recommendation to council.
I have a question. If my understanding is correct, that the park will consist of phase 1 and phase 2 land now, or whenever phase 1 is completed. So both sections will, land from both phases will be included initially, so that it's not something that phase 2 doesn't happen later. The land is all comes to us with the conclusion of phase 1. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how. I mean, this all comes down to, you know, what council officially decides. But my recommendation, what I believe the staff recommendation, of course, you know, Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission has a big say in this too, is that the land is dedicated with phase 1 so that it is secured, so that, you know, if whatever reason phase 2 doesn't come forward, that still there's open area, and it's, you know, and so it's, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Donovan.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Jamie.
Well, I was just going to say, I think for this conversation tonight is, so should the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission look a little bit more at the actual placement of this parkland? I know that we threw out 3 acres kind of loosely, you know, 2.5 to 3 acres is a good sized park. And I think maybe in that next step, you know, does it have to be exactly 3 acres or not? So, you know, do you like the full layout of this? Is the intent of this portion right here by, you know, right off the roadway just for an access point? You know, is that kind of what you're looking for, is more like feedback on the actual, like how the layout of the parkland? Because I think the 3 acres isn't necessarily exact. And I think the Parks Commission, it's important to them to make sure that they know when they're making a final determination or recommendation is maybe it'll end up being 2.7 acres or whatever that calculation might be. But obviously then you'd have to modify this concept. I think they, you know, it seems like it's important to know how much cash and when they'll have that, so that at the end of this project, they have the land and the funds to put in the improvement. So is that, do you want a little more comment from the commission on the actual layout tonight?
Well, I guess what I was kind of hoping for is kind of the dialogue we're having right now. I mean, I'm hearing the commission talk about, you know, some general ideas about layout, and that we're looking for a little bit smaller park than 10% of the dry ground, but we also are looking for funds to develop the park. Obviously, we're very interested in what staff and Parks Commission sees as program uses in the park. So, and we'll rely heavily on that to figure out a budget and programming the park space itself. Then there's all of the other things that go with it. And as Donovan mentioned, you know, it's a 125 lot concept, but when you start to do preliminary plat and you start to work through it, is it still 125 lots? Is it still 3 acres of land specifically? I'll just tell you from my background and my design point of view, this looks like just kind of stamped geometric shapes. And when you start to actually work through the preliminary plat, grading and layout itself and road configuration and pond configuration, things get much more curvy. The design gets much more sophisticated. But we don't want to go through all that process if the Parks Commission is totally opposed to around 3 acres of ground, if they're totally opposed to what they're seeing. We it's expensive to take the next step. It's even more expensive to take the step after that. So we're genuinely trying to get on the same page. That's why we're here.
Thank you for that clarification. Do any other, Commissioner Geyer?
I just had a question back on the drawing there. How do people, other than the people who live right around the park, how do other people get to it? Is that down at what we're seeing down at the bottom? Am I not asking this correctly? So there's
no.
Okay.
You're absolutely asking it. So I'll take a shot at that one. There's two things about this. So this is a chunk of ground. It's about 50 acres of dry ground, and then there's big wetlands on the east and on the west. The blue line that you see through the middle is actually a very large drain tile that's been in the ground for several decades, I think. Is that right, Donovan? It's been there for a long time.
Oh yeah, it's like during the last century.
Yeah, so it's 100 years old, and so we have some details to kind of work out.
Okay.
But I am a believer, and so I kind of help ask the engineer to just get us a connection back to one of the roads, because a park in the middle of a neighborhood that's surrounded always by lots without any access doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? It's not, and as I mentioned earlier, we don't see this as the park for just these lots. As I understood it, it was kind of a bigger, broader conversation for the area, kind of all around headwaters, that we had some kind of a centralized park. Maybe I misunderstood that, but that was what, so the connectivity of it matters. Yeah. Visually as well as people physically being able to get there.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
So those details would come in the future drawing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But
okay.
that it's got something back to a right of way, public right of way is critical, I think. My opinion.
Absolutely.
And one question on the front side of the parkland, is that roadway going to be enough for people to park there, or is that going to be kind of a tight two-way road?
Well, I would suggest that's kind of right. I would say we could use some feedback once we start getting into more of the details about what kind of a program space is the park. In the staff report, it talks about like some kind of there's an area, I think it was actually south of where this land is, but generally in the quadrant, it talks about a dog park. Is this a dog park? Is it a dog park and an active playground park, like we saw pictures from the gentleman who popped up at the beginning of the meeting? What's the program space? Who are the users? That's the kind of stuff that would be very helpful. Right now, I see it as kind of a blank canvas.
Okay.
Yeah, very much.
That was a good question, though.
Okay, I do have another question. I'm sorry, I'm the one with the questions all the time, but I'm trying to. So if I look at, and I'm looking to the right because I have two screens here, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too.
I'll just keep it up through the conversation.
Mine's on the left. I do it up to the left, and so there you go.
So if I look at what we received in our packet tonight, it says that, this project's gross residential density is only about 2 dwellings per acre. The first line of the table, 10% of the land or equivalent market value is used. So if we used that 10% of the land, and there's 50 acres total, that would be about 5 acres for this, correct?
I would have to, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know your ordinance well enough. Is it 5%? Is it a percentage of dry ground or percentage of total acreage? Because those are different calculations. There's actually a lot more land there than 50 acres. It's just a fair amount of it is wetland. And so I don't know what the ordinance says about that. I'm sorry, I'm unaware.
So Donovan, I thought that the ordinance, I thought it excluded wetland in the calculations. No?
Yeah, it is. I have to look at myself.
But it is about 50 acres of dry ground, if that's how it's calculated. I just honestly don't know how it's calculated. I apologize.
How many how many total acres is it, including wetlands?
It is about 70 acres total. And that's plus or minus.
Sure.
Okay, so if we went with 70 and it's 10% of the land or equivalent market value, we'd be looking at either 7 acres or 5 acres here. And so let's say, just for can we just go with 5 for ease of illustrating?
Yeah.
So if we go with 5 acres as the number, and we look at the plan here and we've got 3 acres there, that says to me then we have 2 acres to play with. That would be either a cash equivalent that we would be able to allocate into equipment. Actually, or it would just be the park dedication fee, I guess.
So basically, can I step in there, Terry? The combination of land and fee in lieu of starts off with, as I read the code, as basically, just the fee per lot. Now, if the city wants something different, they want a combination of land and cash, then we look at the market value of acres, and then at how many acres that are being dedicated, then become times that market value per acre becomes a figure that we subtract from that overall, fee per lot amount. So I mentioned, if it was 125 lots, something around, over $300,000, it would be, $300,000 minus 3 acres times the market value. And that would be the cash that would be required to fund those park improvements.
Okay, and that's the number that I'm looking for.
Right.
What I'm hearing you ask directly is that what I'm really hearing you ask is that what is the math, and where does the credit, what does that look like, and what kind of a park are we really going to get out of that? And that's what I really hear you, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing you say that's the kind of meat that you guys really would like to see when we give more formal entitlement at the next level. Am I hearing you correctly? Yeah, and we understand, and obviously, if it was just a straight subdivision and the city didn't designate any area here for park, we'd be paying $2,500 a lot, correct?
Correct.
We'd just be paying that straight up. If the city wanted the 10 acres, then we'd be giving the 10 acres, and if there's a combination of the two, then we have to kind of work our way through the math, and I really need staff's input and help to do that, but we totally understand. The floor is either 10 acres or $2,500 a lot. And if we're going to do a hybrid, we just have to hybrid that out and do the math calculation. I'm not there yet. I apologize. I don't have the details.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And from a staff perspective, because I know we'll have more internal time coming up soon for internal staff review, just so I'm understanding from staff perspective to carry this forward on behalf of the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission. Just consensus tonight that you're looking for kind of that hybrid, confirm you're looking for the hybrid model, a parkland dedicated all at one time, kind of in that 2.5 to 3 acres or whatever seems feasible as they work through these other items. And that would be acceptable to the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission. And your per Commissioner Miller's comment, that general area offset from Headwaters Parkway, kind of centralized with access from not only the neighbors, but the general community. I think, is that a good summary of what would be acceptable and what the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission is looking for as we continue with staff conversation? Are there any other comments or feedback from commissioners on anything else that they'd like to see?
I don't think we've answered the question about the type of park that we would propose this to be. And I would think that my opinion would be it would be playground equipment, picnic tables, perhaps a shelter if there were money available. This would not be a dog park or open land.
I kind of agree with you on that, Doug. I think a playground area that would be suitable for kind of the mid-age would be really good. I like the idea of a covered picnic area and potentially a basketball court, because we hear a lot about basketball courts at other parks.
Yes.
I guess the one thing that I'm seeing is on that plot of land where you got water on one side and you got the park on the other. I mean, I guess you'd want to put some sort of a fence up if they're playing ball or something, or kids kind of having a little bit of fun and they're kind of going into that stormwater. So we'd want to have some sort of a fencing system, I'd think. But
yeah, I trust that they'd probably lay that out with the way they design the, I'd like to see what that looks like on the next design level. Agree with you on that though.
Yeah.
So could we have somebody recap our action items for tonight? Then I have them written here and I know what we're coming back with.
I have one thing I'm not clear about before, if we could do that. So in the staff report, it talks about sidewalks on both sides of the public street and or trail options for the concept plat. And I guess, in looking at the area and the other neighborhoods, the one to the east and the ones to the north, sidewalks only on one side of the street. And I guess I don't know the answer, but are they all 6-foot sidewalks or are they 4-foot sidewalks? So I could, just because it's in the staff report in writing, I don't know if I'm in the right form or not, but I did want to, I noticed that is not consistent with what goes on around this piece of land.
Yeah, certainly. There's basically two types of, the sidewalk, the city sidewalk, private sidewalk, 6 feet concrete.
Okay.
The trail, 10-foot wide by 2 minutes. Part of that conversation, John, we had around, having a more or less direct north-south route was allowing for a trail that would be on one side of the street, going from the parkway all the way up to that stub end at that road, Enfield, on the north side. And that's referenced in the
last page,
the staff memo, just showing how it really could serve a real regional, need, because it would connect up with, with other trails or future trails. Right now, there's not one in Enfield, but we think we'd probably want to, city would do road reconstruction eventually. We would. The sidewalk on both sides of the street is a staff recommendation, given the density of housing, and I think what just makes a neighborhood better. The engineering standard, the adopted standard is that one sidewalk, 6-foot wide sidewalk on one side of the street. We're asking for more here.
Okay. So I guess I'll generally respond. So the first question I heard you talk about is the trail system. So that's like the asphalt trail that's next to Headwaters Parkway is what right? Correct. That thing's It's asphalt and it's a little bit wider. And so you're trying to figure out how to get that up north to connect to the existing neighborhood. It looks like from the drawing. My experience with sidewalks on both sides of the street, and I've done some of that, not in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities area, but I've done it in other parts of the country. It ends up being a very heavy street section, and it ends up being very dense with a lot of asphalt. You've got a 32-foot wide back of curb, usually, I'm guessing, street. And you got 6 feet of sidewalk on both sides, as opposed to what every other neighborhood around is sidewalk on one side, and then with such a wide street, a lot of people, and I've been through the neighborhood a few times, we're usually walking down the street anyway. So, we want it to have connectivity. We want it to have a good flow. We understand, but we also don't want to build it for an area like downtown Minneapolis where you have a lot of pedestrians on the street scrape. So I guess our response back, at least to the staff report, would be we would propose one side of the street, and then we can figure out how to get the trail connection up and through. I understand that it looks from your drawing, you're trying to do a greater loop around this, a pedestrian loop around this area of town, right? Is that kind of where, yeah.
That's the intent, certainly.
Yep, and I get that. And I have a lot of experience with that stuff from the past, and I get that. But yeah, we would respectfully ask that it just be very consistent with the other 3 neighborhoods that this thing is adjacent to, where the sidewalk is on one side of the street.
Okay, we'll be discussing that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Do Jamie, are you able to recap, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but conversation tonight, Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission's interested in the hybrid cash and land. They want to, if there is the proposal of 2.5 to 3 acres, the land to be dedicated in the first phase. And in the next preliminary plat, in that general area as depicted in the concept plan plat shared this evening, roughly the 2.5 to 3 acres, and as it's adjusted as needed for other modifications to the concept plan, it'll kind of take shape a little bit more, not so geometrical, and we'll also receive a calculation to determine, based on that preliminary plat, the amount of land that will end up being and what that cash payment would look like as well. And I think it should be noted when we would receive that cash payment, if it's in phase 1 or phase 2, so we have an idea on that. Did I miss anything? Does that seem accurate? And does Mr. Fox, do you have what you need to feel comfortable in your next steps in this process from the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission?
I think we're good, yeah.
And then we'll just see you back when you have that, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for answering all my questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. Well, thank you guys very much for taking the time. And once again, thanks to the staff for dealing with, they had to put up with me coming up to speed, and I drew the park in the wrong place and some other simple stuff. So but they were very helpful in trying to do all of that. And even Donovan was actually out of the office being helpful. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, my experience with all this stuff is, you know, we can talk about it and out loud where we agree and where we don't agree, and how do we find common solutions where there's win-win. That's how this process works for me. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So next on the agenda is the Fitzgerald Park dedication.
All right. So, Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, before you is a staff letter from our zoning administrator, Donovan Hart, regarding a park dedication request for the Fitzgerald Flats Apartments site plan review. And as we have Donovan Hart here tonight, I'm going to turn this over to him to walk you through this one. And tonight, looking for action per the staff recommendation to accept a cash payment for this project. So Donovan, if you'd like to walk him through that, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. Chair and members of the Parks, Lakes, and Trails Commission, I'd like to present the parkland dedication recommendation request for the Fitzgerald Flats apartment building. And can you see a building on your screen? Yes?
Yep.
No?
What did we see? What?
Okay.
The green?
I didn't get it. Okay, I actually want to show, yeah, I'm sorry. Let me do a location just so that you see, I give you a sense of where this building is. So this Fitzgerald Flats is by the same developer who built Headwaters Landing up here just north of the service center. As you can see it on the screen here. It's already been constructed and fully occupied. Now they are seeking development approvals for a 53-unit building on this site here. They're only using about half the site, and they'll divide it as part of the city approvals they seek. But it's about 2.5 acres located there. The building itself, looks like many of the, I think handsome buildings we see, 4 stories, 53 units. Here's a view from the east. You're looking west at the building and parking next to it. This is one the Planning Commission did approve, as far as a site plan review at the last Planning Commission meeting. Of course, pending Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission recommendation on the parkland dedication fee. In this case, staff is not recommending any land. Here you can see the site plan. You can see some private amenities here, a little patio area, a little dog walk area, little toddler lot for a little tiny playground. Those are all meant for the residents of the building. But here the recommendation is to accept fee in lieu of, and because I'm going to use the same screen and kind of show you the math here, because in 2005, I believe it is, when the land was originally platted, Headwaters Village, the developer paid a park dedication fee for a commercial area. At that time, it was $2,000 per acre for commercial use. Well, the zoning code says that when in the future, if there are additional dwelling units involved in the development, then there's additional park fee required. And so we take this initial payment of the $2,000 per acre for the 2.47 acres of the site. Multiply that, comes up a little bit below $5,000, and then subtract that from the 53 times $2,500 amount for the park dedication fee. So we have 132,500 minus 4,940 to come at a recommended parkland dedication fee of $127,560 dollars for that required park dedication fee. So that's the staff recommendation, and I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Now, with all those new apartments, the one that they had previously built across the street, and then this new one, I would imagine there will be quite a few children in those. And correct me if I'm wrong, but probably the closest parks will be Summerfield and perhaps Clear Lake Park, being sort of equidistant from that apartment. Are we, putting a lot of people into an area that doesn't have anything very close as far as parks are concerned?
Well, there is that, of course, there's the tot lot right near there for the, for that immediate need. Of course, kids outgrow that in, 1-2 years. But now part of the Headwaters, it was Headwaters Landing, Headwaters Place, flat. Now, if you look at your screen here, the project site is right here. You can see my cursor, right to the transit center. Part of this other development approval was, of course, the construction of a trail that comes through here and then winds through this area, which is the city-owned area, onto the old, 202nd Street. And then we have Fenway. So we have this whole, Fenway complex for to meet other park needs.
That's right. I forgot about the Fenway area, and if a trail to that area would satisfy my concerns.
Yeah, that trail has been constructed.
Hey, say Donovan, one question on that land where the apartment's going to go. I thought that was supposed to be for commercial business to come in.
Good question. So you've been reading agendas or something, but no, and that land is across the street actually. After a couple meetings with, this is last summer, a couple meetings with the Plan Commission, and also the concept went before the City Council. This project site is not within that commercial village district.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
can make a motion that we accept the cash payment for this new apartment complex.
I'll second.
Do we want to list the amount, the 127,560? So we have a motion and a second to accept the payment for Fitzgerald Park dedication in the amount of 127,560. Any further discussion on it? Jamie, do you want to do a roll call?
Yep. Chair Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramseth.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer.
Aye.
All right, so that motion carries then. So
Right.
then we are on to, Donovan, are we done with Donovan?
I
Yes.
think so.
All right.
He's welcome to stay and learn more, but
Thank you, Donovan.
Thank you,
Have a
Terry.
good evening.
otherwise you're free.
Yeah.
Have a good
You
evening.
won't hurt our feelings if you leave. It's
We'll see
okay.
you, we'll see you again soon. We got some unfinished business.
All right,
Okay.
thank you,
Thanks,
Donovan.
Donovan.
Thank you.
He'll be
Thank
back.
you.
All right, so next on the list is the Forest Lake Association budget. Jerry, thank you for being patient and waiting.
Well, I've learned a lot tonight.
Good.
So Chair and Commissioners, my name is Jerry Grutner. I'm president of the Forest Lake Association. I think I've been in front of you one other meeting here a while back. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about a request that the Lake Association has for the city of Forest Lake. And I guess to set the tone for the meeting, I guess maybe a little background is necessary because some of you may be wondering, why is Lake Association coming to PLT for approval of a budget? And Jamie, you and I have talked about this. I don't know if you had a staff meeting with Patrick a little bit, and if all the commissioners are aware of why this is going on, that's terrific. If not, maybe a little context might be helpful here.
Thank you. And I was going to jump into that right now. I did speak a little bit with Administrator Casey, and the request has been to have the Lake Association here with their budget request tonight and to work with them in the future. As you see presented in the staff memo and packet tonight, there's a 2021 request with additional years of 2022, 2023. And it just gives the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission the opportunity to review some of those requests and recommend to council. So there's that process in place when it's going to city council for consideration. So this is just the start of this process. So context wise for tonight, it looks like per the staff, the letter provided by Jerry here with the Lake Association, there was a budget request for 2021 with the city council directly, which is included in the spreadsheet that was provided. And so tonight, I think it's really more important and time sensitive to the Lake Association for the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission to review, more of that 2021 component. I think from beginning that this is the beginning of a process, I think we should wait to really hone in on 2022 and 2023 as we haven't really even started our budget conversations. But the goal is to wrap that into our overall Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission budget request and carry that full budget request to City Council when we can take into consideration what other lake associations needs may be, what other lake improvement projects are there, and similar to trails and parks. So kind of bring that whole comprehensive look to City Council. And so this is part of a new process. So again, I think for tonight, just talking through the 2021 request, that was provided. And just for clarification, it looks, I do believe City Council did approve the request for 2021. So tonight it's just more of beginning that process, reviewing what the proposed projects are. If the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission has any questions for this year, I think tonight could be fairly simple. And then let's revisit the 2022, 2023 budget items as we get into those conversations. So that's my understanding of this process. correct me if there's anything additional or anything else on your end, Jerry, or anybody else from the commission. But I think tonight, just really looking at the 2021 request and review of those projects.
Yeah, Jamie, I think that's a great summary. I wouldn't want to kind of, from a point of reference here, so everybody in the commission knows that in years past, you know, the funding for Forest Lake has been paid out of the general revenue fund. And this year, the council voted and made a decision that the funding for Forest Lake will be funded out of the surface water management fee. And this is not necessarily just a one-year decision, although I guess, to be honest with you, the Lake Association completely disagrees with that decision, but that was the vote of council. Because we're subtracting monies from the surface water management fund to pay for lake improvements, which is hurting the surface water management fund. But for 2021, that is the decision of the council, is that the $72,000 that was approved will come directly out of the surface water management fund. And I can't address where it'll be for 2022. That's another discussion with council here as you go into the budget cycle starting in August. So the request here was, you know, that I put together here was at the direction of Patrick Casey to kind of describe this in more detail, where we expect to spend the $72,000 for 2021. So hopefully I have explained it well in my letter, and then even better in the simple Excel spreadsheet. So I'm not going to go through all the details. I think it's somewhat self-explanatory, but I'd sure open it up to questions or concerns or anything else.
I have just a general question.
Oh, go ahead.
Why are the two line items, the watercraft inspection and the weed harvester, so much higher in this year than subsequent years?
Well, this is what you're seeing here is the requested city budget for 2022 and 2023. That's not what the expenditure is going to be.
Okay.
The expenditure will be very close to those same numbers as in 2021.
Okay.
So that's the requested city budget, again, because one of the requests from Patrick Casey was that we present, you know, he actually wanted a 5-year budget from the Lake Association. And I said, I can't give you a 5-year budget. You know, I'm lucky if I can do a 1 year. But so I put together a 3-year, hoping that would start some dialogue.
Okay, thank you. That helped.
Yeah.
I live on the lake and I belong to Forest Lake Association. Not an active member. I just send in my check.
Well, you should be an active member.
I should.
Doug, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I have a question just for my own personal interest on the herbicide treatment where you have the 3-year guarantee. That's for milfoil, so that's for Procelicor or something?
Yes, it's a Procelicor treatment. It is a relatively new herbicide treatment that the DNR started approving about 2 or 3 years ago. And the manufacturer provides a 3-year guarantee that where you apply this product, that no Eurasian milfoil will grow for 3 years. And this is starting to become a very, I would say, common approach in certain lakes across Minnesota. But if you can knock down Eurasian milfoil and keep it from growing for 3 years, you're also stopping the spread of it, because those large patches aren't spreading around other parts of the lake then too.
Okay. And on the rapid response plans, who's developing those that you're spending that money with?
Yeah, the EIS rapid response plans, Steve McComish with Blue Water Science, who has been the consultant, has done all the work on Forest Lake for the last 10 years, is along with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District and the Lake Association are jointly putting these rapid response plans together.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear, I know in your letter, time was critical to make sure that you could get contracts signed and begin work this year. I just trying to clarify, did council already approve the city's portion for 2021 so Jerry can at least move forward with 2021?
Yes, my understanding, and I know Jerry spoke different budget accounts, but my understanding is that council did approve the $72,000 request for this year. And I think tonight is just Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission support in moving forward with the projects as outlined. And then we can regroup on the rest of the budget request in a subsequent meeting to dig into that a little further.
Okay.
What I have not presented to council is the breakdown of the $72,000. So that is also going to be part of the approval from council, I assume, based upon approval of from the commission tonight, that the 72,000 will be spent in these 1, 2, 3, 4 areas here in 2021.
And I did speak with Jerry a little bit about, you know, our role with recreational use of the lake. And there's a lot of use of our lakes in Forest Lake. And I think, you know, obviously having well-maintained and lakes that attract people to our community is a really big benefit to Forest Lake. So I think it is important. So, you know, I think we've always been thinking recreational use of the lake, but some of this work to keep the lake free from Eurasian milfoil and other, you know, invasive species, I think is really important to continue drawing people to Forest Lake. So, you know, I know that some of this is new to us, but I think if that's their effort that the funds are going towards, I think that it makes good sense to keep treating and taking care of the lakes to encourage people to continue to use Forest Lake and Clear Lake and all our lakes in the community.
I agree. I also agree with Jerry on the use of the surface water management fee. I think we're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. And at some point, Peter's going to want to be paid back. And so I think long-term, as part of our budgeting process, we should be considering how do we fund this going forward? What's the right way to fund this? So I would like, as we look at our budget, I would like us to have that conversation as well, because it doesn't make sense to take it out of the surface water. But that's, again, my opinion. I'd like to have the conversation about it. I also think in looking at 2022 and going forward, there may be some opportunities for the city to leverage some grant opportunities there as well, potentially, depending upon what's there. But I do support the idea of, I think that we need to proactively incorporate this into our budget process and our budget ask that we bring forward this summer. And I think we also need to look at the other lake associations as well and incorporate them together and bring a proposal together. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Second that opinion on making sure that we don't lose sight of the other lake associations. But and as far as, you know, from my opinion on the spread of where the dollars are going for the budget, I'll leave that into Jerry's hands and the folks that run that day to day, because I wouldn't know the better. And if 72,000 was given, I would be fine with that breakdown.
I agree.
And the 72,000 to me is directed towards preserving the lake, and which, as Jamie mentioned, I think is critical. And not only from, there are many different ways it's critical, right? From an economic development standpoint, from a value standpoint, from a recreational standpoint. So I would support where those funds are directed right now.
You know, one of the points, just to real briefly here to understand, is that, you know, I don't think the general public, the city, or the Lake Association, or even the watershed district really fully understood what gets spent on the lake on an annual basis until I started putting these numbers together here and saw that $250,000, you know, will be spent on the lake, less $42,000 in grants we get. I mean, it's a lot of money trying to protect the lake and do the right things for the lake. So it's not an insignificant investment. So I think you know, the commission looking at this and the council, you know, having the awareness of this, this is all very positive for the city of Forest Lake.
I would agree with you. I think it's that education piece and awareness, and it allows everything to kind of come full circle and together to have that full analysis of what the needs are and what's all really going into it from all the different lake associations and from the city and how that's all funded. So I definitely think it's a good starting point to continue the partnership and conversation.
Agreed.
So for purposes of tonight's meeting, I'd like to make a motion that the breakdown of the 72,000 as it's listed in 2021 be recommended to be allocated as listed for council approval.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Jamie, do you want to do roll call?
Chair Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramseth.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenblock.
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer.
Aye.
All right, so that motion
For your
carries.
time, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, all right, thanks guys.
Jerry,
Thank you.
just so you know too, Jerry, we'll use
Yeah.
these numbers as the future year numbers as we do that budgeting process too.
Absolutely. We'll keep in touch with that as we get into the middle of summer.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
For sticking with us.
No problem. I learned a lot.
All right, so now we have the facility use agreement with FLA. I know we had a couple takeaway items. So Jamie, do you have an update on that one?
I do. So Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, we have before you, I'm going to share it on my screen here. Last Tuesday, April 13th, we held a workshop, and we also had representatives from FLA present at that workshop, where we went through a facility use agreement that was in a draft format for review, and we went through everything in great detail. And we did have a couple changes as a result of that. I did present the updated version with the City Council at their workshop last evening. And again, really no major changes suggested. There were a couple very minor ones that I did make, and I will point out quick tonight. But this also has been sent back to the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association, and they are in agreement with the final changes that were made as a result of last night. So needless to say, a quick turnaround. So I apologize for not getting this to you sooner, but we've seen this in great detail. I will call out the couple of minor changes that were made, but this is a regular item, and we are seeking approval to recommend to council approval of this agreement. So can everyone see this okay on my screen? Does it look large enough? I received some feedback that it wasn't easy to read last time. It looks good.
I can read.
Okay, so bear with me because it's really big on my screen. So I just have to scroll through here to find the couple of updates here quick. Give me one moment. Okay. So if you can see here, number 8, I'm just going to highlight, we took out the word excessive. So right here, I'm going to highlight this sentence. So it was brought up at the council workshop last night. It originally had read, association agrees to repair, replace, or compensate the city for any damage or excessive cleanup costs at the athletic complex related to the use of fields by association members. So it was agreed by our attorney that we could remove the word excessive. So I just wanted to note that one change from last night. I'm gonna go up here to priority scheduling. We talked about the priority use, and that was defined here that FLA teams have the priority to reserve the athletic complex. But one thing that was just missing that we just clarified is kind of that period of time that they get the priority scheduling. So we talk about, you know, they have the 20 days prior to their season. So really they're given the first opportunity to reserve the fields. We were kind of missing that deadline. So after that scheduling priority period expires, then the city has the opportunity to rent the fields out, or at least, you know, rent the fields out to other user groups. So we did add this scheduled deadline in here. So we'll just take a minute and look this over, but it basically just says, let's see here. I'm just gonna, after the scheduled deadline, the association no longer holds priority use, and the city may, in its sole discretion, schedule events at the athletic complex with other operators. This includes the city's ability to simultaneously schedule non-association events at the same time as association events, provided that in the city's sole discretion, sufficient parking and accommodations exist to meet the projected need. So that was all added. FLAW is aware of that addition and is okay with that. It just clarifies that, you know, you do get priority scheduling, you got to submit your schedule. Once that deadline's met, then the city reserves the right to schedule otherwise. So any questions on that one? I know it's a little detailed. And that was really the intent of all of this, and the conversations. It was just missing in writing in the agreement. So that was just clarified, so that after their schedules are all submitted and we have everything on the books for FLAW for their seasons, then we can rent it out to somebody else. And that's the whole purpose with the calendar and everything, to, you know, provide access to other user groups.
Jamie, that was a big issue at the workshop, that they wouldn't know 20 days in advance of the season. So they acquiesced on that and said that was okay.
Because we did add in here that, so they won't know their specific schedule with whether it's games, when their games or practices would be, but we did put in here that what they're okay with is that their schedule can be modified, and that should still be in here. Take that out. Let's see. Sorry, it should still be in here that they can modify their schedule at any time. Let's see. Let me verify that in just a second. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
It's done in the next paragraph.
Did you see it on there?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were comfortable with that. And what that means is that once it gets closer to that time frame and they fine tune their schedule, then they'll know, you know, I have a game, here's our game schedule, here's our practice schedule. But this is more particular to fast pitch because of how they have to schedule their games. So fast pitch has already submitted to the city their block of time. So they have Mondays through Thursdays on fields. I think it's 1 and 2, and from 4 to 9. So we have that reserved for FLAW. They'll modify that as it gets closer, and they'll tell us, okay, we actually have, all of these are going to be games, or we have 5 games and 5 practices. So they are comfortable with that, being able to modify that, but we did get their schedule submitted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last change as a result of the meeting last night, Council Member Valento asked if we should consider a severability clause. And so our city attorney did just add this in here. And again, it's just pretty standard contract language that you see pretty often. And FLAW again was okay with that. So everything else remained the same from our last meeting. And again, council reviewed it last night, and that was the extent of the feedback. Council was excited to see this, you know, near completion. And so tonight it is here for final approval and recommendation to council. And if we do receive that tonight, it would go back to city council next Monday for their final approval. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So Jamie, I just want to go on record. I did get a email from a member of the community who said that the fees should be reflective of their sole priority use and the amount of time it's being used, and not available for other city use. So I just want to share that comment and put it on the record, and it's something that we can look at for next year when we have more data and information. But again, wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Anybody else have comments or questions?
I move we approve the agreement with FLAW and the city for the 2021 season as submitted.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, Jamie?
Chair Steenblock?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramseth,
Aye.
Commissioner Steenblock,
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Jamie, for all your
Thank
hard
you,
work on
Jamie.
that.
You're welcome. Thanks for all your input and
Yeah,
patience, and
definitely.
I'm looking forward to moving forward. So thank you,
I'm
everybody.
sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry Commissioner Moorhead isn't here to see this finalized.
I did have a brief conversation with her before, and so I said, I think we're on the right track to the final steps here. So she was happy to hear that. She
Good.
conflict.
Good. All right, next on the agenda is the park athletic field fees for Fenway.
All right, and so as you can suspect, I've been pretty busy focusing my efforts on this facility use agreement, a lot of turnaround with council, with our meetings in council. So I was optimistic we'd get to a point where we could potentially take action on this tonight. I don't know that we're going to be ready, but I just want to touch on it and give an opportunity for discussion. What I'm going to pull up here is just a brief, let me see here. I'm going to pull up a brief thing on this topic. Got to shift screens here. Okay. So just as a recap, we had back in March, we were considering different fees for FLA users, whether that's an hourly rate or a season permit. And now that we have the amounts within the season permit, let's see here. Of course, my presentation. Give me 1 second to reload this. It just shut down. Okay. I'm going to just pause for a quick second here.
We take advantage of this pause and jump ahead to the spring fling event update while we're waiting for Jamie.
Sure, makes sense. So we have the second annual, although we didn't have it last year, spring fling, May 1st. Again at the City Hall, kind of in the fire station, inside and out. So everybody hope for really good weather. It will be held from 10 to 1. And we have, if you were at the last one, it's very similar. We're going to have the petting zoo. We'll have a craft table. We won't have like the bouncy houses. And we won't have food that people can carry around, but we will have kind of to-go snacks for the kids. Let's see, some crafts, some little carnival games, some giveaways. And we invited Northwoods Humane Society to bring a couple of their adoptable pets. So it should be a really fun day. We've got 3 sponsors. We've got the Forest Lake Lions, Keller Williams, and Bolton and Mink. So that helps offset some of the costs. And it'd be just great if everybody could, if you're around that day, want to stop in or volunteer. Should be a fun day for the kids.
Thank you for all your work on this one, coordinating and planning it. I know you've done a lot of work.
You're welcome.
Do we have volunteers signed up yet at all?
We are signing up volunteers. Karen actually has 6 from the Rotary. And then we've reached out to the Lions. So we've gotten a couple there. And then I think you reached out to the Scout troops and they're camping that weekend. So I will take a look in the next few days and just see what we've got for volunteers and see who are missing. I did reach out also to the Forest Lake High School. They have a youth service group. So I reached out to them. So she was going to do some checking.
Awesome. All right. Any questions for Betty?
I just want to say thank you again to Betty as well for leading the charge on this. So you've been a big help in that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Good
I know
job.
we're busy.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for the little diversion. My program ended and now I have it up again. So I'll kind of go back to this agenda item if you guys are ready for that.
Yep.
So just a quick comment here on what we have left to do as it relates to fields. I'm going to share my screen and we can kind of just quickly discuss tonight, but I will need to bring this back to a future, another meeting here soon. So as you can see here in our city's fee schedule for 2021, as I mentioned, we were kind of going back and forth on what are our fees going to be for at Fenway and for FLA. We need to adopt or amend our fee structure. So as you can see here, we do have the athletic field rental. So we still need to determine what our fees are going to be for residents and non-residents using the fields at Fenway. I'll share another screen in just a second where we left off with that conversation. I think we're close here, but we also need to determine the tournament fees and also if and what additional fees we might charge for other city fields for FLA or other nonprofit youth athletic associations. So I just need a little time to kind of regroup on that. This is an opportunity to talk about it tonight and see if there's any other thoughts or feedback. This is where we ended. So looking at Fenway Fields, resident, non-resident, and these were some of the tournament costs that we had discussed. But again, I think we need to summarize, what other field fees are there? Schools and nonprofits, is that fee structure look different? And so I think that's our last piece to this puzzle to figure out. So I don't think we're ready to take action tonight, but I just thought we'd at least quick discuss it if there's any comments or questions that you have this evening.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
And if not, that's okay. I'll regroup on those final fees and can bring that back to another meeting. I just think we need a little bit more information gathered to summarize that. And was hoping to get to it tonight, but again, it's been pretty hefty on the other facility use agreement. So I apologize.
And Jamie, once we finalize these have to be posted as well.
Yeah, so the next steps here from our end is when we set the fees, obviously we'll need approval from city council, but it also does need to be posted 10 days prior because it is it's an ordinance update. And so that's the requirement. We will need to post that for 10 days. So I'll see what I can do on, quickly putting together some final recommendations and see if we're open to just a really brief special meeting to approve them, or we can wait till May 18th. I think that would be fine. These would be fields that are rented outside of, obviously the FLA priority use that we have with them, or if people just want to use the field for a special of, a graduation party or a kickball game, things like that. So I think May 18th would still be okay, and I'll work through those details. And if it's necessary to get together for a really brief special meeting, we can try to coordinate a date and time for that.
Yeah, we do.
If that would be okay with commissioners, if you're open to a short special meeting to approve.
I'm happy to participate in that. Understand the need for some more time on the fees now that you've got the other part of it put through. So
thank you for that.
That makes sense.
This is my next priority, so I should be able to get to this fairly quickly. So I'll just regroup with the Parks Commission when I am ready to present that as more of a final recommendation for consideration. So thank you for your patience and understanding.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion on that one? All right, we will move on to park improvement priorities and requests, which is 6A.
All right, and so this is now we're switching over to discussion tonight, and we don't need to get too in depth on this tonight. I wanted to put this on the agenda. I know it's been a while since we've talked about our work plan. I think we've just been naturally pulled into different directions with the field facilities and things like that. So our workflow has just been structured that way. But as we clear that and as we get into our community events, now being formulated and planned, I think it's a good time to just start that conversation again on what are our priorities. Maybe not for tonight to have a solid answer, but what should our next steps be? I know we were presented tonight with some, the Clear Lake Park, as an option to consider. So just a discussion, you know, as we regroup. I know I also received some more requests for a dog park. So just a discussion tonight. I don't have anything extremely formal to share, but if there's, you know, how do we want to address the next steps? Is it helpful to do another work plan and try to focus on that as we get into the summer months, to revisit our priorities that we've identified? What would be helpful for the Parks Commissioners to see in May to start driving some of those park maintenance and improvements forward? So just a quick discussion tonight. What would you like from staff to kind of re-engage that park maintenance and improvements list of things to do? So with that, I'll turn it over. And if you guys have any guidance or feedback for me, I'd appreciate it.
Well, for me, it would be helpful to go over what we have previously talked about for the various parks and their requirements. And I think we had some priorities on those to move forward on what we had previously decided.
Do you have a working plan, Jamie?
We did, I believe, a Q1 work plan. I can see if I can find that briefly here. But it's been a bit since we, you know, obviously, to me, 2020 kind of feels like it didn't happen. So it's hard to believe we're only a few months into the new year. It feels
Right.
like in this long continuation of months and months that was a whole year. So we really yet in 2021 haven't really dug in too much to kind of what the priorities were. I feel like it's been a little while since we've talked about it. We did develop some, as Commissioner Ramseth indicated, we do have some projects identified, but I think we need to, you know, we always have things that continue to come up. So I think maybe it would be helpful to identify what are a couple goals this year for park improvements, based on all of the priorities. We have a lot of them, but what should we focus our efforts on this year, so that we're not always interjecting a new request or project with things that were previously identified. So we do, but it's not, you know, I think we need to look at that to update it again.
Yeah, if we can get that, the most recent one resent out, that'd be great. Do we have any active projects going on right now?
I got an email just late this afternoon that the Bay Park equipment completed installation today. So that's exciting news. They just have to add the mulch, and I believe that's going to happen yet this week. So that project is complete. Aside from that, you know, we're just starting to get into this, you know, the new park season. Again, it kind of feels like we've already done that a little bit with some of the nice weather we've had, but I think there's twofold. You know, what are the maintenance projects, things that need to be repaired and replaced as we open up the park season? And what are some of those other projects like the dog park and Clear Lake Park and things like that we're looking at? We do have the Forest Lake, or the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District did submit the grant to the DNR for a fishing pier. We received positive feedback on that, and you know, feel pretty optimistic that that's a good opportunity for this year. We're just waiting to hear back from them. Other than that, we don't have any active projects, but a lot of things that have been, that could be worked on. It need to be worked on, you know, and I know Commissioner Ramseth, we need to regroup on the Belts master plan. We have somewhat of a timeline for that now, but we need to kind of re-engage those conversations. So I think if from the discussion, it just sounds like bring to the May meeting an updated list of considerations, and then we can, from that meeting, formulate a plan for this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to look at the budget for those things too, and try to figure out how we would allocate the budget dollars to what we're going to do too. Again, into two separate buckets, maintenance and capital improvements. The only thing I was wondering too, Jamie, was there is a So I think our demographics have changed. I know we continuously talk about a dog park, right? We've done that since my whole time here, and then we go away and then we come back. But I think our demographics have changed. If you look at the number of apartment buildings, we're now increasing in that area, and we're getting more and more requests for a dog park. And I know that there is a grant that is available for a dog park, and I think it's got a May deadline. I guess my question is that something we would want to look at to see if we could get some grant funding, or do we want to wait? And the only reason why I'm asking is if we bring these back in May to have that conversation, we would potentially miss the grant opportunity. And the grant opportunity requires some community feedback as well. So we need to build in some time to potentially post a survey or something out on Forest Lake Happenings and Nextdoor and those types of things.
And would you also have to know where you want to put it in order to get the grant, or can that be decided later?
No, we'd have to know where we want to put it. And I know we've had some conversations about potentially putting it over by the Dragon. I can't think of the name.
Oh,
Bixby Park.
Cedar, Bixby, yeah.
Bixby.
Yeah, I think there's actually a Bixby Park master plan out there from years ago, and it's pretty elaborate and it's very expensive. I want to say upwards of $5 million or more dollars. Yeah. Hence, we haven't really looked at it because I don't think it's a reality in the near future, and maybe needs to be revisited. But I think that was the intent of where a dog park would be placed. But I think dog park, and I think you see as simple as just an area with fencing and a few benches and dog, garbage stations to the very elaborate, bells and whistles. So I think if the community is really asking for a dog park, I think we could look into that and provide a dog park at a lower cost option, but to provide that service or that amenity to the community. So I think that, if Bixby Park would probably be our best option for that. But to, Chair Steenblock's point, we would definitely need some community input because we wouldn't want to put it there if people aren't going to go and use it. So, but I do think we could do that at a fairly low cost.
Well, parking would be a major consideration because I would think that people going to the dog park would need to drive there. And so some of the places like that one by the storage units, it'd be nice for a dog park, but there's no parking. So
yeah,
parking is a consideration.
Right. So just, I'm just pulling up here. This is obviously 2020, which it feels like it didn't happen sometimes, but these were some of the things we had talked about. So maintenance and improvements. We didn't really have anything super specific. We've crossed some things off of there. But I think there's definitely some work to do. I think it's important to figure out what our maintenance and improvement projects for this year. So, I talked about, the dog park and the fishing dock. Those are two things that are potential for this year, but I'm looking kind of more at this maintenance and improvements bucket. And also with the agreement we just approved tonight, FLA can send in written requests for maintenance and improvements items from the city. So, maybe they'll send us a list of things and we can take that and look at it with some of our other park needs so that we can evaluate what those projects are at a holistic approach with what budget we have available, because we want to make sure that we aren't, if there's park improvements that are needed, that it's not all just going to the field improvements. So maybe that would be just a good next step at our next meeting. Compile a list of items and price those out to see what our priorities are for this year.
Hey, Jamie, on the maintenance and improvements, I don't know where it fell into, but the cloth canopies at Lakeside, more so of a more structured, solid
at the shade
shelter or whatever, yeah.
Sure, like at the shade structures. last year Public Works was able to fix the poles so they are no longer kind of tipping. That could be on another like more detailed list to look at replacing. You wanted to replace the actual coverings, correct? To provide more shade.
Yeah, more shade versus the cloth coverings that we have.
Yeah, so I think things like that of what are some of the requests and the needs, and build out that list so that we can provide Public Works some guidance this season and kind of have a blueprint of what this year looks like, because I feel like we always get to the end of the summer and then we have some funds left and we're like, okay, what are we going to do with that? And I think if we can start thinking strategically of, you know, what needs to be done, well, Clear Lake could be a good example of using some of our extra funds in the fall to purchase a small piece of equipment, or, you know, maybe we can do it sooner because it's maybe wouldn't be an expensive cost. So we can, I'll put together, if you guys think of anything off of, you know, outside of the meeting here, I'll regroup on some of that information and send it over. But if you have anything, just send that over to me and I'll add that to the list.
Jamie, can you have on Clear Lake, if we know that there's some water issues over there or the heaving with the basketball courts, can we at least have Dave or somebody on his staff go out there and give us a little assessment from a maintenance standpoint on that?
Yeah, I think that's not a problem to understand what we're working with there. I'd be happy to do that.
Because I think it's a twofold there on that one. It's, you know, hearing the feedback we heard tonight and maybe looking at some different equipment. But if we have some other issues with that could be more maintenance related, maybe that would be an opportunity to get them on the maintenance list as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Okay. All right, so we're kind of good on that one. Any more conversation on this topic? We'll just wait for Jamie will bring back the original list and we can add to it. And
yeah, I think it's just important to bring it back to our forefront as we're, you know, getting to the season. And it really has been a bit since we've been able to focus on that. So I think just want to bring that back up and have it be discussed briefly tonight. So thank you.
All right, so next on the list is the senior center reopening plan.
So I was going to have our communications and recreation coordinator provide an update tonight, as she's been working on the senior center reopening plan, but unfortunately was not able to attend tonight. So I will give you a brief update just that the city is working on the reopening plan and looking at about mid-May for a phase 1 reopening, which would bring the senior center back to the operations, kind of basic operations, a door open a couple days a week for a few hours to start re-engaging some activity there. I will be happy to email out a more detailed reopening plan for your review, but just a reminder that this is going to kind of funnel under the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission as well. If there's any, you know, conversation, discussion moving forward. But we are working on getting those doors open again safely for the Forest Lake senior members.
So not tonight, but maybe in the future, someone could give us just, and maybe I'm the only one who doesn't know what all is involved in the senior center. I mean, what kinds of things will come our way going forward?
Yes, and just to kind of respond to that, this is new to everybody. The Forest Lake Senior Center was formerly operated by the Forest Lake Seniors Inc., which is a 501c3. So the city has an agreement with them, but the business coordinator that they'd hired did retire in October. And so the decision was made to have this kind of funnel in under the city, which is really common in a lot of communities. You'll see the city's senior center as part of Park and Recreation. So you're not the only one. This is new to me. It's new to everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of work through that and understand what those expectations are as we continue to move forward. So just want to keep you guys updated that we're trying to get that the doors open again soon.
Amy, do you see yourself becoming an event planner for that, or are you just the landlord?
The city is currently working on or rehiring a coordinator for that position, similar to the former business coordinator. So I will not be doing the day-to-day coordinating and planning. That will be another position. And I'm here to help facilitate anything under the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission and serve kind of as an advocate and resource from city staff. So I will not be the day-to-day involved in the day-to-day planning.
Good.
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 Yeah.
Good question, though.
Any more on that topic?
No.
All right, moving on to the 10-year plan.
Just a brief update on this. I know Administrator Patrick Casey is working with City Council still on a 10-year financial plan. It was on the agenda for last night at the workshop, but it is moved to next Monday, the City Council meeting next Monday, April 26th. But Administrator Casey is going to talk about a potential funding mechanism, local sales tax, which is the very first conversation on it, just to even see if it's something that the City Council would be interested in. I think that's just the reason bringing that up is I think it ties into the 10-year financial plan and how things are funded. I know that that's a big project and it's still in the works. I'm happy to get an updated report sent over, but I know that it's just a very draft document right now, looking at the various requests and needs. But I know there are, several placeholders for the Parks Commission and the department included in that now. So it's kind of one of those that's continuing to be worked on. But we do have some good placeholders in there for the Parks Department.
Awesome. Lucy, sounds like Lucy likes that as well.
Didn't sound too excited.
That was.
Yeah. And we already covered Parks, Trails, and like the Spring Fling. Did anybody else have any updates?
I have a question that I'll use in this. Going back to the Forest Lake Association budget, they had 2 rapid response plans, one in general for aquatic invasive species. If the city's paying for that, I would like to have that be a plan that can be shared with other lakes so that we don't all have to go develop our own plans.
Makes sense to keep it consistent.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Good point.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to pass that message along.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Anybody else have anything? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we just raise our hands if we are in favor?
That sounds great. All right, I see everybody signaling for adjournment. So as always, thank you for your time, everybody. Enjoy your evening and we'll see you soon.
Thank you again for your work.